Hello, Planet Sewers. It's Mathletee here. I have an African penguin habitat speed build for you today. So we're going to look at a couple of cinematics and then go through the speed build and then a real-time tour. So we're going to take off here from the fennec fox and meerkat station that I uploaded last week. So this train track is going to take us right through the African penguin habitat and down. And I tried to get a view from the train of the penguin swimming, but I could never quite get it when I had the camera running. So here we are, starting the speed build, and I did a null barrier. And then what I'm doing here is moving terrain around. I wanted the penguins to be able to go underneath the train track to have access to the land on the left side there so they could get into the water. But I did not want them to have access to the actual train track. Any animals that get on the train track will stop the train or the monorail if it's a monorail or the safari ride. So I didn't want to have any of the vehicles get hung up by penguins walking across or just lollygagging about. I've had kangaroos who like to take naps on the tracks, so I wanted to avoid that so that the train could flow through here without having to worry about animals. So I'm going back and forth between the heat map and regular view so that I can get that just right so they can go under but not on the train tracks. And I have gotten success with that. So I'm going to go ahead and do my terrain. Usually I do that later, but I decided to do that now since I was already in here with the terrain tools to make it just right for the penguins. Also, I generally don't bring the animals in that early, but I wanted to get the terrain correct before I built anything. And in my mind, I knew that I wanted to kind of split this habitat, and it ended up being a lot bigger than it really needed to be. But originally, I had almost wanted to put in the new white rhinoceros, but I already have Indian rhinoceroses, and I felt that the penguins would be more entertaining to view from the train. So I went with the penguins, but I went ahead and kept the big habitat. They do breed quite quickly, so with this habitat, if you do use the African penguin, you won't have to worry about running out of space anytime soon. There is plenty of room here. So running my path, the way that this zoo is set up in my blueprint zoo, I had two large paths, one that's running next to the meerkats and the fennec foxes. Oh yeah, Ruby, hello. And I had another one that's running on that other little strip of land in between my rivers there, where there's not a lot to see. So I wanted to give guests an opportunity to cross over. And this also gives them access to the monorail and the train station that are on this side, as well as give guests that are on this side access to the gharial exhibit and the boat ride that's over there. I have two different stations they can walk to, pretty evenly spaced if they were to walk across the habitat and onto the other side. And from this side, I did want the penguins to have access to the water, so I built this little glass bridge for them. I really don't know if guests would be able to see them if they're toddling across it or not, but I thought it was a cute idea, so I decided to go with glass and pushing that terrain just out of the way so that not everything's covered by the dirt, and separating a piece out to create a new grid so that I can advance move this little wall in so it comes in at a curve or angle, I should say. And since I had a height difference here, I decided I would finally get to use that new dome roof piece and made myself a little tower. I did try out different windows here, and I took out my auditions in editing, and this is the window that I went with. Since the other building was kind of pink and yellow, I decided I would go with blue with yellow on this building instead of keeping that pink theme that the Meerkats and the Finnick box have. But I did tie their pink in by using the pillar there. I brought in the pink there. It's got yellow, pink, and purple, and so that way they kind of share the color theme a little bit. And in the end, you will see that I do decide to change a little bit from all the blue when I shared this picture with some peers in a Discord. That was one of the suggestions, was that it was just a little too much blue, and so I went in and made a couple of changes right at the end. So I'm just adding in glass here so that the penguins can't get across and escape via the path, and then that way guests don't have penguins right with them. I haven't checked the Zoopedia, but I don't think the penguins are an exhibit that guests can walk into. And duplicating this over, I was really frustrated with trying to duplicate those pillars. For some reason, they wouldn't keep the orientation every time I duplicated it, no matter how I duplicated, whether it was Control D or Control X, it would always reset the rotation, and I would have to re-rotate it to be able to slide it straight, or at least what I would think is straight. Eventually I did decide, well, if I do two of them, then maybe I can move these around a little easier. And I did do that with the bigger one. And once I got all of those in place, I just made sure to duplicate the pillar with the wall to make it simpler to get that in there. And as I built this out here, I did notice that I liked it better with that extra piece on the bottom. So I go back around and add that extra piece on the bottom and go ahead and readjust all these wall pieces so that you don't see the path from the outside, which is where I decided, instead of lining up all these walls super perfectly, that I would go ahead and add in a nice big pillar. I had hoped that I could just change the piece out and it would keep the color of my smaller version of these pillars, but that didn't work. So I went ahead and just did it manually, and then adding a little bit to the bottom, getting it all the same color. And then there you can see I keep having to rotate this to get the arrow to slide down the wall instead of my arrows aiming out all the time. It was really frustrating. And then eventually I get a little smarter and decide, well, what if I just duplicate two of these guys? Oh, it looks like here's where I just do the wall. I thought I had done where I duplicate two, but rotating that around so that I can get that one. Here's where I duplicate the two to get them over here and not have to worry about the sliders. It was easier to just delete a pillar that I didn't want than it was trying to get that perfect rotation so the arrows would go the way I want them to. I'm not a huge fan of the left, right, forward, side to side thing it was trying to do. And then I decided that I did want the penguins to be able to walk across this little area right here, and I did want to use some actual shade for the guests as well. So the first thing I built was the stained glass little roof here to kind of match what was going on with the Finnick Fox and Meerkat train station, except I kept the colors with the game already had them set to instead of changing them. And then I alternated with just the regular glass roof, the modern glass roof. And then I could tell the little difference here and how they don't line up perfectly. So I went ahead and added in some tile to go down the side so that there's a good even straight edge on the flat roof here. And then as I was looking at it, I decided, well, I'm just gonna scoot this whole thing one over and then go the other way so that they line up. And I deleted the original. I'm not sure why, but I guess I thought that I don't know what was going on in my mind at that moment, but I guess I thought the tiles were gonna overlap or something. And then I decided I didn't want to quite do the wall over there just yet, and went for building my little penguin ramp and finding a rotation that's going to allow them to get up there. I didn't want it to be too much of a slope for them, and I got lucky and he's able to get up there. On the last video I uploaded with the otters, for some reason getting them to use their ramp was a very difficult process. It took me a long time. I just took a lot of that out. I think it was having some calculation problems. But anyway, back to this build. I'm trying to get that glass selected so that I could move everything all together and start doing this side of the habitat. For this side, I really didn't want too much of it next to the path, just a little bit, so that as they're coming up, walking away from the meerkats that in the Finnick box, that they could have a little peek in. But I didn't really want it to be too close, but I wanted to keep the same wall all the way around. And I really wanted some kind of archway over the habitat gate there, but I didn't find anything that really looked the way I wanted it to, so I just used plaster pieces just to cover up right around there. And right there I was using some plants to block access for my penguins to be able to escape. And the last thing that they needed for their habitat, other than enrichments, which they already have some, was their shelter and some bedding. So I decided to use that same stained glass design and make them little shelters, and go ahead and put in a bunch of bedding, because eventually there will be a lot of penguins in here. And I kind of move around when I build. Sometimes I get a little worn out mentally from moving things around, or it just gets boring or redundant, and so I'll go do something else for a little while. Or sometimes I'm thinking of how I want to do it, if I want to keep it the way it is or do something different. I think I was toying with the idea here if I wanted to have the same kind of lookout that's on the other side, and in the end I decided just to do the one side, since the train does go down on the other side, and finished off my nice little bridge for the guests to walk across, and hopefully they can see a penguin swimming down there. And unfortunately, penguins really don't want a lot of foliage in their habitat. So with those trees and how large this habitat is, I had to find some smaller things to kind of decorate with around the building. And I added in just 2 rocks right here to give a little support from the hole that was created when I was doing some of the terraforming. Adding in a couple more plants, and I'm already hitting their max coverage. They really don't want any more plants, but I wanted just a few more. And here is where I've decided, based off of some feedback, so thank you to my Discord friends, that when I shared this were honest and gave me some constructive criticism. So I went back and changed the top part to yellow just to break up all that blue a little bit. And it also blends in, I think, with the theme that was going on over with the meerkats and the fennec fox, because I also kind of had a little split somewhere in the build with the colors. And the feedback was that they liked the yellow much better on the top than without it. So that's the final color scheme. So luckily, if you do download this, you can change the colors to your liking. You can keep the same theme. You can change them up a little bit, however you like. So now we are ready to take a walk. And over there, I have no idea how those meerkats got there. To be honest, that's the second time in this park I have found random meerkats. And this guy here is just so excited about those meerkats. But maybe they think they can see the gharials that are over there. That's my thought. But anyway, so this is the one side where there's not a whole lot going on. And so they can choose to come this way instead of keep going to the gharials. Or if they're leaving the gharials, this gives them a different route to take. And then there's where the train can go through. And I didn't see any penguins on that side. And as I was walking through here, I did notice I forgot all my education boards and speakers. So I did add them. There's a penguin. Not a very good view of him from here. He's pretty tiny. Maybe I should move that platform a little closer so that we get a better view of him. So walking around in the Tejikam does really help sometimes to get a really good idea what things look like and make adjustments. So I'm going to peek through here. Oh, I see one. It just went underneath. Let's see if we can see him from this side. Nope. I just see the reflection of my monorail going by. So we'll keep walking this way. And there's someone over there. So maybe if we, if we go stand there, maybe we'll see what they're seeing. And I do see several penguins going through the water. They are speedy little swimmers. And I'm not sure what happened to the glass on the left, but I did add that too before putting this on the Steam Workshop. And just a little view of that side of the habitat. There's a penguin over there by that tower. And we're going to go this way, see if we have any penguins hanging out over here. See if we can see anybody. Oh, I see one behind the bush. Let's just go ahead and walk in. We'll take a little peek over here at their habitat. There's a couple of them over there in their shelter. And we'll walk back through the window. I should have gone over the ramp. That would have been fun. But apparently I want a window crawl. So I'm looking around. Let's see. We've got the feeder. Oh, there's 3 of them hanging out over here. They're looking at the disco ball. I think that enrichment is so cute. I like that ball. And then they have their little shelter over here that's a little more private. And their glass ramp for them to have water access from this side so they don't have to walk all the way across, depending on what side there are, unless they just want to. Oh, and speaking of, there goes one over the penguin ramp. Apparently the guests don't notice him toddling over. I think that's so fun to watch them actually use different ideas that I had for this build. I can't see him coming down, but I see something running over here. Is there another one up there? No. Well, we're gonna move on. And oh, there's the keeper. Oh, he's using it too. Yay! It's so great to see it all function the way you had in your mind. So he's going off to feed the penguins. So we're gonna come out on this side, and so the guests can either come to the penguins from the monorail that's over there, or they can come from the meerkats that are on the other side. I'm not sure why I spun around right there. I guess I was having a moment on which way I wanted to go. And we'll zoom over here really quickly, have a peek from the side. And I see another penguin running down there. He's so cute. Well, thank you so much for checking out my video today. I hope you guys have a great day. And if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to my channel by hitting that subscribe button and hitting the like button if you enjoyed this video. And this is available on the Steam Workshop. And I have said "and" way too many times. So with that, I bid you adieu. May the RNG odds be ever in your favor.